What is going on? Welcome to Project Elevate. Man, I'm so excited to be debuting this series. Reliving the 90s is based on WWE2K23's Universe mode and kicks off in May of 1990. It's part historical recreation, taking a wrestling documentary's perspective, but hindsight is 2020, so we're going to be sidestepping some of the era's biggest blunders. But don't worry, we'll definitely be reliving some of those blunders again together. You'll be able to follow along with the series on YouTube, Twitch, and on Twitter. Let me explain. So YouTube episodes will follow along with the weekly shows in WWF and WCW, and you guys will be able to vote on which promotion had better events and shows on Twitter polls after episodes are released. House shows were still a big part of the business in the early 1990s, so they'll feature some marquee matchups and can be seen live on Twitch.
Acknowledge me.
And before I move on, I want to take a second to acknowledge all the awesome creators of WWE2K23. Without the custom superstars, arenas, and belts, this series would not be possible. So just a huge thank you to you guys. And if for whatever reason you guys don't want me using your creations in the series, DM me on Twitter and I won't do so moving forward. Secondly, I want to give a big shout out to Wrestling Bio's channel on YouTube. I've been enjoying their work for a long time, and in a lot of ways this series pays homage to the work they do over there on that channel. The link will be in the description for them. With that out of the way, before we jump into episode 1, let's quickly recap what's going on in the title pictures of each promotion. That way we can hit the ground running in episode 1. Okay, so before we get into the details of each show, each week, let's quickly go over the last pay-per-views for each company. And for WCW, it was Wrestle War that was headlined by Lex Luger versus Ric Flair for the NWA World Championship belts. And on WWF side, we have WrestleMania 6 that is headlined by Hulk Hogan versus Ultimate Warrior in an epic battle held at the Toronto Skydome. And as we go into the Hogan versus Warrior match, you can just see the crowd is massive, it's pumped up. You see Warrior coming in, making his entrance, and the crowd is just going nuts. And there was nobody that could really get a crowd going at this time like the Ultimate Warrior. Just the amount of energy that he came into the ring with, running down the alley like that, shaking those ring ropes, just crazy. And this is an interesting match because it's title versus title. Ultimate Warrior holding the Intercontinental Championship. Hulk Hogan has been the world champion for a couple of years now. And as both men get ready for the bouts, this is a rare situation where you had fan favorite versus a fan favorite. The crowd is split, cheering for both guys, both obviously two of the top guys in the company at the time. And here we go, and let's not expect to see too many wrestling technical stuff going on. This is just two heavyweights going at it, fighting it out, slugging it out. You have Hogan sending him into the corner, and he goes up for the turnbuckle punch as the crowd starts counting along. But before he can get to 10, the Warrior shoves him off and comes at him with a running drop kick. Hogan fights back, hits him with a big clothesline, and he tries to get the crowd pumped up, but the Warrior sends him outside. Action back in the ring now. Big clothesline from Hogan, and then a big gut buster by Warrior. Hogan sends Warrior into the corner, comes in with a big clothesline, and that drops Warrior to the ground. But look at the power. Look at how he just flings Hogan up into the air, goes for the pin. 1, 2. Hogan's able to kick out at the count of 2. Warrior's frustrated by that, and the crowd is just kind of going crazy here. And Warrior just sends Hogan right into the mat there, picks him up like he's nothing and flings him, and goes up for the big suplex. Just awe-inspiring power here by the Warrior. And it's back and forth. Again, no technical wrestling going on here. It's just power, but the crowd is eating it up, man. The crowd, they're going nuts. Looking to mount a comeback, but Warrior and him collide. They both don't give any ground. Again, and then Warrior hits him with a clothesline. They lock up. Hogan goes for the suplex, and he gets Warrior all the way up and down. And it's looking like Hogan's looking to mount a comeback. He's going for that power slam that usually sets up the leg drop, but Warrior counters with a back body drop. And you can see here the crowd is decidedly favoring the Warrior in this matchup, which is so rare to see in this time. The Warrior sets Hogan up. He hits the big splash, but no, Hogan counters it, gets up, hits him with the big clothesline. He's getting ready. He's pumping up the crowd. He's doing his Hogan thing, but Warrior gets him in that bear hug, halting the momentum. We don't see Hulk hulking up. And you see Hogan able to get out of the bear hug, But look at this power, man. Just pressing Hogan like he is a cruiserweight, drops him down, goes for the pin. Hogan manages to kick out at 2. But he sets him up, hits him with a big splash. Warrior with the pin 2 and 3, and we have a brand new champion. The crowd is losing their minds. Again, not the most technical wrestling match you're gonna ever see, but man, the crowd was just hyped, and what a moment, man. The next match we're gonna look at is for the NWA World Title. It happens at the legendary Greensboro Coliseum venue in North Carolina, and Lex Luger looks great here. This is a young Lex Luger, still a little bit green, but man, his physique looked incredible. And then the Nature Boy just in all his glory, doing his thing. And there's something about going back and watching Ric Flair kind of more in his prime that just really stood out to me as I'm kind of going back and watching these matches. So the story leading up to this match is Sting was briefly in the Four Horsemen. He ends up getting a title shot at Flair through a tournament, and the Four Horsemen forced Sting to relinquish the title shot or get kicked out of the Four Horsemen. He doesn't do it. They ended up injuring him, and Lex Luger steps into the fray for a title shot at Flair. So this is the title bout here. You can see Flair kind of doing his struts. And two contrasting styles here, where you know Ric Flair is going to play dirty, being aggressive. You know he's going to try to set up for that figure 4, working on the leg of Lex Luger from the get-go. And early on, it's all Ric Flair, but then you just kind of see the raw power of Lex Luger with just those massive strikes, picking up Flair like he's nothing, slamming him to the ground, and just like that, the tides turn in the match. Lex Luger with the momentum sends Flair into the corner, and look at the flex by Lex, man. And he goes throughout, and at this point, Ric Flair's just like, I want none of this, I'm leaving, I'm out. Lex Luger goes out to bring him in, and he continues the onslaught, and you can tell the crowd is really feeling this. There's a lot of concerns about Lex not being ready for this type of spotlight, not being ready to be a main eventer, but in this match, he really showed that he could put on a good match. Here they go, trading blow for blow, back and forth. You can tell the crowd is getting behind Lex Luger here. Lex sending Flair into the corner, trying to set it up for a superplex, but Ric Flair is able to counter, and just like that, at the drop of a dime, he turns it all around, puts in the figure 4, and just like that, it could be all over for Lex Luger. He manages to fight through, reverse it, switch the pressure, forcing Ric Flair to let go of the hold. Damage taken by both guys here. And then Sting decides to come out to ringside to support his friend Lex Luger. And you know the Four Horsemen are not far behind. And here we go, and Lex Luger inadvertently drops the referee and then manages to get Flair into the torture rack. And you could visibly see Flair submitting there. The crowd's going crazy. But just like that, Arn Anderson attacks Sting, puts him in a sleeper hold, and Lex leaves the ring, goes out to help his buddy out, starts wreaking havoc on the Four Horsemen outside the ring, and he ends up getting counted out. The crowd was not pleased with this countout decision, but Flair manages to escape in actually what was a really, really great match, honestly, from start to finish. Alright, so just to round out the rest of the title picture in both promotions, we're going to go through them real quick, not going into super detail, but this match also happened at WrestleMania. It's for the WWF Tag Team Championship that's held by Andre the Giant and Haku, being challenged by the Demolition. And Demolition during this time are fan favorites, although that would change pretty shortly after. And this match is a match where Andre the Giant's health was failing. He actually never legally tagged in the match at all. And he got involved a little bit in the match, but ultimately never tags in. Demolition are able to wear down Haku. So Haku manages to mount some offense, getting the Tonga Death Grip. And just when he's looking like he's got a little bit of momentum, Mr. Fuji causes a distraction. Demolition is able to kind of sneak up, go for the roll, and we have new champions. Crowd like what they saw. And afterwards, Andre the Giant actually turns on Bobby the Brain Heenan in what would end up being his last WrestleMania match. In the Intercontinental title picture, Warrior was forced to vacate the Intercontinental title after WrestleMania, and they held a tournament to determine the next champion. The finals ends up being Mr. Perfect versus Tito Santana, and Mr. Perfect was probably the first heel that I kind of really enjoyed his work in the ring, so this was cool. I'd never seen this match before, so this match was a pretty even match, and you had some pretty good wrestling going on. Both guys were really good workers, and it's just cool to see the arrogance of Mr. Perfect in this era, kind of in his heyday, in his prime. Tito Santana reversing out of the suplex and then hitting him with the bulldog. Mr. Perfect, one of the guys that could just sell like nobody else. Perfect manages to get him over the rope outside. Perfect with a nice little hip toss there. Sits there and taunts, works up the crowd, generates that heat. So ultimately, Mr. Perfect is able to hit his perfect plex. Referee counts the 1, 2, and the 3. And we have a new Intercontinental Champion in Mr. Perfect. Okay, so this match we're going to take a look at is between Doom and the Steiner brothers. And it happens at Clash of the Champion, and this is a match where it's title versus masks. At this time, Doom was wearing masks and nobody knew their true identity, although it was pretty obvious who they were. And this feud is going to be important moving forward. This is for the NWA World Tag Team titles, but we're going to recap what goes on real quick here. It's a hard-hitting match between both teams, pretty even match. Doom manages to isolate Scott Steiner for a nice little chunk of the match. But he manages to make the hot tag to Rick Steiner, and Rick Steiner comes in and just kind of cleans house. Rick Steiner manages to hit that bulldog and then gets the pin from behind. 1, 2, 3, and they retain. Doom ends up having to unmask, and the world sees that it is actually Ron Simmons and Hacksaw Butch Reed underneath those masks. Alright, so I hope you guys enjoyed that recap. Now that we're all caught up, I'm so excited to kick this off. This should be a lot of fun, so look for episode 1 releasing soon. This is Project Elevate. Till next time, elevate your grind, game, yourselves, and each other. Peace.